Bolts fans, you are up. This is the second video in our new series, doing some offseason reviews and some 2025 expectations for all 32 NFL teams. If you missed the first video, we talked about the Chiefs. So, Chiefs Kingdom, if you have happened on this video first, go back and watch your team's video either before or after you come back to this one. It's fine. We want you to know that we talked about your team as well. But, Brian, second video, Chargers. I think we had a pretty good conversation about the Chiefs, so we're going to do it again here with Los Angeles. Going to try really hard not to refer to them as San Diego at any point. I know that's going to be hard for you, especially.
Oh yeah, I grew up with them being in San Diego, so I still haven't gotten used to the Los Angeles Chargers, but that's okay. They're a good team and did good things last year. Look for them to be a little bit better this year. Yeah, let's get into it. 2024 record looked like they had a 11, just kind of mediocre year. But I do think they improve on that. I think they've made some good improvements that we're going to talk about, and we'll get into it. So what do you have for their free agent departures?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, and this is probably going to be something that I touch on a couple of times throughout this video, they had a couple of puzzling departures that they left. They had money. Like you said, they were an 11-16. That's a pretty decent record. They finished second behind Kansas City within their AFC West division. But they let go the pair of Morgan Fox, who went to the Atlanta Falcons, and Poona Ford, who ended up going to the Rams. These were two big-time defensive tackles on their front, players that they relied on to stop the run, generate pressure up the middle. This was the disrupting force on their defensive front, and they let both of them walk. Despite having what I thought was the necessary, basically the money to bring them back. They had the assets in hand to at least keep Poona Ford, and they let him go. And now he's playing for the Rams. So not a short drive for him as far as leaving one team and going to the other, staying there in L.A. But it was somebody that I felt like they really needed to keep, and they didn't. And then the other one that didn't mean quite as much, I think, is Josh Palmer. He was a very reliable wide receiver for them, somebody that we saw play across from Ladd McConkey, who is now the wide receiver one in that offense for sure. But somebody that had been around for a few years was Palmer. Back when they had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams missing weeks to injury, Palmer was kind of that guy that stepped in from the wide receiver three and took over that wide receiver one role and did very well. And now he's going to be catching passes from Josh Allen in Buffalo. So not something that I think is going to hurt them because, as we'll see, they did bring in some new receivers as well. But the defensive departures were a much bigger thing for them this year.
Yep, I agree. What about additions? Did they add anybody that you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, I think the big thing for the Chargers is we're going into year two under Harbaugh, and so he's going to continue to shape this team into the identity that he has, almost that Michigan-style team makeup. So Najee Harris is probably going to be the biggest name that you see brought in, somebody that can handle a heavy workload. I think to this date, he has not missed a game in his 4-year career. He's had 4,000-yard rushing seasons there in Pittsburgh. Not going to wow you on any one particular play, but he is steady as it gets. He is going to go and get the tough yards. He actually can catch the ball a pretty good bit. We saw that his rookie year with Ben Roethlisberger as a shell of himself. Najee became a dump-off, check-down king. And so, I mean, he definitely has those chops there. But I think one of the big things that you'll see is Mekhi Becton on that offensive line. He was drafted to be a tackle, kind of floundered around, didn't do a whole lot early on in his career. He signs with the Philadelphia Eagles last year on a 1-year deal, moves to right guard, and absolutely dominates as a member of that unit. Obviously, we've seen what that offensive line can do. And so now he comes to bring his physically just dominating road grader style to the Harbaugh offense, where they like to run the ball, they like to control the clock, control the game, and he's going to open up holes for Najee Harris and another back that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And then they also brought back a familiar face, and this is why part of the reason why I think that Josh Palmer's exit isn't going to hurt too bad. Mike Williams, after leaving for a year, he now returns to Los Angeles. He is a favorite weapon of Justin Herbert, so getting him a familiar face back in that room, somebody that he can depend on, a 50-50 ball specialist, kind of makes some 70-30 balls in your favor. He goes up and makes big plays. Biggest issue with Mike Williams is he tries to play almost too aggressively, too physically. He will deliver a hit to a defender at the goal line trying to score a touchdown. He'll go up and make the hard catch and try to toe tap, and then he doesn't get up after. So he's going to make the play, just maybe sometimes at a detriment to himself where it might not be worth it. But can't understate what he is able to do on any one given play for that offense. So I think they made some pretty good offensive additions, but you're going to see a theme here as far as what they added to. And then just as far as re-signings go, they did try to bring back some defensive pieces, just maybe not the ones that a Charger fan would have expected or hoped that they brought back. Khalil Mack is a big one. Khalil Mack, I think he's on a 1-year, $18 million deal. He can still be a productive pass rusher. He is getting up there in age, but I think he is somebody that they desperately needed. You know that a quarterback, even one that you don't think is very good in the NFL, can make you look like $1 million as an offense if he's not getting pressured.
Sure.
Guys, we're Falcons fans. We know what a team looks like when they're not generating pressure, and it doesn't matter what safeties you have, what corners you have, your linebackers. If you are not generating pressure, you are going to get killed by that opposing quarterback. We've made backups look like prime Tom Brady. Yes, they had to have Khalil Mack come back to put pressure on the other quarterbacks within this division. Troy Dye, I think, is an underrated re-signing at linebacker. He does a lot of good things, not always viewed as being a starter, but he can put a lot of meaningful snaps there. He can be good on special teams. And then Elijah Molden as a defensive back and what he does for the back half of that defense, allowing them to move other players around, I think is very useful. Glad that they brought Elijah Molden back because he just joined the team last year, and what he did for them, I think, almost went under the radar, but it was almost a transformative signing for them. And to have him come back and reprise that role, and it allows them to have some scheme versatility and things of that nature. I think that was a good one to bring back as well.
I agree. Everybody knows your favorite day of the year is draft day. So how do you think they did, and who did they pick up in the draft?
Yeah, so they got 3 picks that I want to talk about. Obviously, first rounder Omarion Hampton. He's a running back out of UNC. If there wasn't a guy named Ashton Genty around, this would have been the unquestioned number 1 back. And if you haven't heard this before, there were several teams that had Hampton as their RB1 in this class over Ashton Genty. Now, I'm not willing to make that claim, but I could see it being a 1A and 1B. Hampton is phenomenal. He does everything that you want a pro running back to do. I think letting him come in with Najee Harris where he doesn't have the pressure of being an every down back is going to really benefit him in the early stages of his career. So you talk about fantasy football, he might not be putting up the numbers that you want him to put up in the first half of the year, but I think the back half of the season, you'll see him truly take over that lead back role. He's going to make Najee Harris something of an afterthought, I think, in a quick order. And he's going to be that Harbaugh bell cow for a number of years to come and an absolute menace in the league. Trey Harris in the second round I thought was great. Trey Harris, I believe, is a first-round talent at wide receiver, coming out of Ole Miss. You saw the way the Ole Miss offense looked with Jackson Dart throwing passes to Trey Harris. He is just an absolute beast. And I think he gives them somebody that can play on the outside. He can be exactly what they thought Quentin Johnson was going to be coming out of TCU. Obviously, having Mike Williams on one side, having Trey Harris on the other side, that allows Ladd McConkey to work out of the slot, which is exactly where you want him to be. You want him to take advantage of those nickel corners and linebackers, the safeties, basically just create mismatches all over. Harris allows them to do that by giving them a young boundary threat. He can catch the deep ball. He's very good on go routes, those deep ins and outs and stuff like that. Very good breaks, very good routes, and a physical specimen. So love what they did through the first 2 rounds. And then fast forward to the 5th round. A lot of people might not know about Oronde Gadsden. He's a tight end out of Syracuse, used to play wide receiver. So he's kind of in that Kyle Pitts mold of a tight end in a wide receiver's body. I think he's like 6'5", very fast, a little on the lean side, 230. He's not going to impress you with his blocking, but what he does as far as a receiving, the mismatch, the seam stretching ability, he gives them a dynamic that they weren't going to have otherwise. Love what they did with the draft, the weapons that they added. They continue to shape this team in the image of Harbaugh. There's only so much you can do in a single offseason, which we saw last year, 11-6. But going into 2025, don't take this the wrong way. I currently have them pegged at 10-7, so losing one extra game. Sometimes that could just be a one-score game not going your way. The Chargers want to play a physical brand of football, a smash mouth style of football. You've seen that. And it can be successful when things are going your way. But what happens when things are not going your way? Obviously, Justin Herbert is a very good young quarterback, but they don't always give him the reins to control the game the way that you might expect. And I think that comes down to coaching. And I don't want that 10-7 prediction to be an indictment on the Chargers. It's more so looking at what the other teams in their division did. I think there's going to be some attrition within this division once you get past Kansas City. I think the other three teams, looking at the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Raiders, I think they're going to beat up on each other throughout the year and exchange some losses. So I have them actually finishing third within their division. But what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I actually think they're going to do a little bit better. I think they're going to be, that 11-12, somewhere in that as far as their win column goes. I think Herbert does. I think they give him a little bit more control this year. I think, adding those weapons, I don't think you'll see the sophomore slump with Ladd McConkey. I think he's going to pick up right where he left off. I think him and Herbert have really good chemistry and really will be on the same page. So I actually think they're going to do a little bit better than what you have predicted. Not much, but just, maybe a couple of wins. And like you said, there could be a few games in there that could go either way. We said it in the Kansas City video that, this is going to be a tough division, probably one of the hardest divisions to play in, just because every team is that good, or I feel is that good. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I think they're going to have a decent year. I think they're going to put up wins. I think, I hope to see them in the playoffs at the end of the year. Again, I'm not big on predictions as far as who goes into what playoffs and Super Bowls and so on and so forth, which we will. I'll go ahead and tease it a little bit. We will give our opinions on the last video on who we think will end up in the Super Bowl this year. So that's, something to look forward to. What do you think about their strengths and do they have any concerns?
Yes, I think biggest strength going for them is going to be familiarity. Greg Roman returning as offensive coordinator. This is only going to be the second time in Justin Herbert's career that he's going to have the same offensive coordinator for 2 years in a row. There's been a little bit of a revolving door in the coaching staff for him, and I think that has inhibited him a little bit. So having Greg Roman returning, getting that scheme familiarity, being able to bring in a new group of guys. Like I said, Herbert came in, had a really good season with Ladd McConkey. They bring back Mike Williams. That's a familiar face. They bring in Trey Harris. Now the offense is already installed, and it's just getting everybody up to speed, creating new wrinkles. I could definitely see things going their way. That 10-7 record is one that I'm willing to be wrong on. I could see things going their way more often, but I could also say the same thing about Kansas City. Kansas City won a lot of one-score games last year that a lot of teams would have lost, and you could see things go another way for them as well. It's very hard to predict these things in June. But everything comes back to the concern that I laid at the beginning of this video. It's their defense. The defensive line departures are going to make them struggle, especially in a high-power division. I think teams are going to be able to run the ball against them because they have a weakened defensive front that I don't think they did enough to fortify. I think losing Poona Ford and Morgan Fox are going to hurt them in ways that they don't even realize yet. I think when football starts happening, when people put the pads on and these games start getting played, I think it's going to be one of those things where everybody goes, oh, wow, that's not good. It's going to be one of those things where I could see you targeting running backs for, like, especially when you get into like daily fantasy, kind of the DFS scene, you'll start targeting running backs that are playing the Chargers because they're going to be able to run the ball 5-6 yards a carry against them, because I think they could just have gaping holes to run through all year long. And I think it's going to really hurt them. And we've seen the way that Philadelphia runs it. Just if they can control that clock, and they don't care if they go for 5 or 50. If you can control the game that way with your running game, constantly getting first downs, extended drives, it's not going to matter how good his connection is with Ladd McConkey on the sideline, because they're going to take them out of it. I think people are going to score in bunches against the Chargers, and wanting the Chargers to match up in an arms race against like a Kansas City or some of these other high-scoring games like a Buffalo. I just don't think that's what they're built for. They want to control the clock. They want to grind it out, but they don't have the defense to do it. They have not built that defense the way that they needed to play the brand of football that they want to. And I think that little bit of dysfunction is going to be what breaks their season and allows them to get surpassed within the division standings. That's why I have them finishing third. I think their biggest concern is one of the biggest concerns in the league. I think it is one of the more glaring concerns that I have looking at all 32 teams.
I agree. Okay, so last question, just like in our last video. What about the Chargers? Who do you got on your fantasy football team?
It really hurts. I'm a big fan. Like I said, talking about their first round pick in Omarion Hampton, but having him splitting touches with somebody like Najee Harris, I think kind of caps him year one. I think he's a great pick in dynasty formats, but if you're looking at redraft, he's not somebody that I want to rely on early on in the season. So if you can handcuff him with like a Kamara and Aaron Jones, some of these aging running backs that are going to do better at the beginning of the season but wear down, and then you could utilize him in the second half of the season where I think he takes over, that can make a lot of sense. But other than that, I think it's Ladd McConkey. Like you said, they have a growing chemistry. They have that relationship that looks so good from the beginning last year. McConkey's just somebody that knows how to win. He knows how to find gaps in coverage. And it's crazy to think that he was never the number one target for his team in college. You look at Georgia, he played with Brock Bowers. He was never the number one guy, but he didn't have to be. He just quietly wins. And I think you even mentioned it before we recorded this video, so I'll give you a little bit of props on this. You said a lot of people talked about Brock Bowers in the season that he had, that it almost overshadowed McConkey in the season that he had. Well, McConkey getting overshadowed by Bowers is kind of the story of his life at this point. Yeah. And I think he's just going to keep winning. I think that he's going to do really good things. You look at PPR leagues, I think he's somebody that can have an 8 to 10 catch game, 100 yards, a touchdown here and there. I think he's going to be very productive, very consistent, and I think he would be a very good asset to anybody's fantasy team. So I think McConkey would be my big target for the Chargers.
I agree. Ladd McConkey, I don't know that he would be my first round draft pick, but he definitely is one that I would pick up. I also wouldn't sleep on Justin Herbert, and the weapons that they're bringing in. I think I like him as a quarterback. I've liked him since college, so I don't, would he be my starting QB? I don't know, but he definitely would be somebody I would sit on my bench for sure, and have a backup or play in that bye week when everybody else is struggling to get a quarterback. So, those are the two that I would pick up. I probably would not. I would probably stay away from the running backs, Hampton and Harris. Although I am a huge Harris fan, I don't know that I would put him on my fantasy team at this point.
I think the big thing
for a backup.
Yeah, I think the big thing with the Chargers is the way that they play is going to, what helps them in real life hurts them in fantasy. They are not there to put up big stats. They're there to win games. And so Najee Harris splitting work with Omarion Hampton, it helps both of those backs to stay healthy, but it also limits their opportunities. And fantasy is a game that's very much based on opportunity, and you don't see any one guy have substantial opportunity. We talked about this with Justin Herbert. How much opportunity does he have to produce when they want to run the ball behind a Mekhi Becton. They want to hand the ball off to Hampton and Najee Harris. Well, those are points for the running backs, but they don't do anything for Justin Herbert. How many touchdowns are they going to let him throw? There's a big difference with him having 20 touchdowns and him having 35 touchdowns. And it is a coin toss for me as far as what number he actually approaches, because he could be on either of those ends of the spectrum.
Sure. And we do want to give a shout out to our lads. This is the website that we're using to get the depth charts. They do a great job, as far as posting it early, where some of the teams, they kind of wait until the team is built, and I understand that. But our lads does a really, really good job. It's super easy website to use. You basically just go up to your URL and type in our lads and then space and then whatever team you want to look at. We are not sponsored by them, but I do want to give them a shout out as to, we are, using their depth chart and kind of using their stuff. So guys, I want to thank you for watching. Enjoyed it as always, and we look forward to seeing you in the next